And that is how it is done, ladies and gentlemen. Utah Hockey Club come away with the game that I thought that they had to win, even though there was 16 games left. The game that they had to win if they were going to find their way into the wild card spot. Get a chance at those Winnipeg Jets. Hey, Winnipeg, we're coming for you if we can get past these other teams. Big, huge, monumental win tonight for Utah Hockey Club. We will be talking about it tonight on After the Buzzer here at Hive State Hockey. My name is Keith Schertz. I run things around here at Hive State Hockey. If this is your first time joining us, welcome. I hope you enjoy your stay and you'll stick around. We'll see you again. Hit that subscribe button. Give us the little thumbs up like tonight. If there's ever a night to get hyped about, spread the little good karma out there. Tonight's the night. If this is your second time around or third time around, or you're one of our loyalists, welcome back again to my friends Car Wash and Sparky in the chat. I congratulate you on your exceedingly fine taste tonight. And I also congratulate the Utah Hockey Club. Wow, what a terrific game. All the different ways in which they had to overcome adversity. I thought that the team did so many things right. They not only get the win over the Vancouver Canucks tonight, but they played Vancouver 3 times this season. And in all 3 games, Utah Hockey Club sent the Canucks packing. So, been an interesting year for Vancouver, but we're not talking about those losers, right? We're talking about Utah tonight. So, quick first thing first, obviously you gotta love seeing Utah find a way to gut it out. In particular tonight, it was that third period from Logan Cooley. Logan Cooley tonight in the third period was particularly stunning to watch. He just kept stacking shift after shift after shift, and that guy continued to find a way to make such a huge difference while he was on the ice. The effort by the entire team tonight was tremendous. Tremendous. After playing quite a flat and bad game even against the Seattle Kraken, tonight against Vancouver, this team looked ready to roll. And as you noted there, Sparky, I see that you say the Canucks looked a little tired. They were on their second game on a back-to-back. You know who didn't look tired, but he didn't have that much to do, honestly. Did not have all that much to do, was Karel Vejmelka. 10 straight starts. This guy goes out there and drops a .947 save percentage. 1 goal against. Veggie continues to be good for your heart. He is absolutely playing some great hockey in net for Utah Hockey Club. 19 shots on net is all that were surrendered. Hard game tonight. 23 shots for Utah. Wasn't like there was this. It was pretty evenly played. It was just finding a way for stuff to go in. And I thought that Utah did a better job of getting better high area scoring chances. We saw going into the third period that Vancouver only had 1 shot from the slot to that point in the game. So it was a pretty interestingly tight game. And it seemed like both teams were playing tight. Beyond that, we had a disallowed goal. That was a fine disallowal. It was good work, though. I love seeing Carcone going straight to the net. Carcone was terrific tonight when he was on the ice. His matchup while he was on the ice, the amount of expected goals when he was on the ice tonight in all situations was through the roof. I think he was leading the team, at least with 5 minutes left when I was looking on moneypuck.com. The other thing with Carcone tonight is that when he was on the ice, the other team was not generating any opportunities. And so basically it was like Carcone was coming on, and the gravity of his play was just tilting the ice in one direction. It was pretty impressive performance by him tonight. But tonight, for me, best player of the night, absolutely, was Logan Cooley. I thought Cooley was terrific tonight. I thought that the energy that he played with clearly was elevated, whether it was being shifted off of the first line, no longer playing with Schmaltz and Cooley, and Keller. Maybe that was the thing that made all the difference in the world to him. But honestly, I actually think his style of play does not suit playing with Schmaltz and Keller. He's actually not a good blend with those two players, and moving him down and having him go and try things. And they tried lots of different players with him. So pretty fascinating thing to watch tonight, seeing what they could try to accomplish. But there it is, a season sweep over the Vancouver Canucks. And we love this. I've talked about this in the past, but I'm going to cover it one more time. The whole reason Utah Hockey Club has their highest goal scorer on the team, Dylan Guenther, although that might be tied now because of the empty netter by Keller. The whole reason Dylan Guenther is on the Utah Hockey Club is because Vancouver traded away. They sent away some contracts. They picked up Oliver Ekman-Larsson. They picked up, who was the other player? He's on their team still. He's fine. Connor Garland. They picked up Connor Garland, Oliver Ekman-Larsson, and then were able to dump a couple salaries onto Arizona so that they could hit the salary floor. Arizona was able to make that trade, but the other part that they got was the first-round draft pick from Vancouver. Vancouver's first-round draft pick ends up being Dylan Guenther. So a 2 or 3 month rental of Oliver Ekman-Larsson, and then a few years of Connor Garland. That is a bad trade. I do not think that we would take a trade that would return us Connor Garland and Oliver Ekman-Larsson for Dylan Guenther at this period of time. Pretty fascinating. So, love seeing Utah continue to roast Vancouver. In a lot of ways, maybe the worst trade in the history of the Canucks. And I like that. I like that history. I like the idea of being a team that really, really frustrates, annoys another team. We just don't have that much history, obviously, yet. And so it'll be fun. And part of the way that enmity can be grown and have good sports hate that can occur is by making the playoffs, by finding your way into the playoff race. And tonight, again, in order to get past the Vancouver Canucks, they needed to win the head-to-head game against Vancouver. Had they lost tonight, they would be 6 points behind in the race with 15 games left. That is a very difficult thing to do. 6 points back, 15 games left. Instead, 2 points back, 15 games left. It was absolutely 100% a must-win game for Utah if they were to see the playoffs in their inaugural season, and they were able to get it done. The other thing, too, is I thought that Utah's response to the Quinn Hughes power play goal was tremendous. I thought that was a period of time where you could have really seen a lot of panic, but what you saw was that the team continued to do the right sort of work. I thought Nick Bjugstad was great. It's clear that one of the things that has changed this team is to get away. They have one really like kind of fancy pants, like, we're really skilled line. And then the second line, though, goes to work. And now the third line, obviously, that checking line of Doan and Krause and McBain, holy smokes, they seem like a nightmare to go up against. And then obviously you've got the Bjugstad and Stenlund and Carcone line, which is great. And I thought Bjugstad, that he had a little stretch in the second period where that was the best I think I've seen him this year. And Kevin Stenlund, just the goal-scoring machine right now. He's going crazy. 10 goals on the season for the guy who's always on the fourth line, is only playing about 10 to 12 minutes a night. Usually he's down on the penalty kill. He hasn't scored any shorthanded goals. The fact that he's at 10 goals at this point of the season, that is kind of nuts. Like, he's like one of the best fourth liners in the league. Which seems like kind of an insult, but it's not, right? I mean, he is a star in the role that he plays. And then obviously, again, third period, it was like Logan Cooley. It finally shook loose for Logan Cooley, and he found a way to really, really get after it and really execute. So, really pleased for tonight's result. Let me start a little poll here real quick. I'll just say, all right, let me fill this out real quick. We're going to be asking your opinion on tonight's player of the game. For me, it was Logan Cooley. But I also think you could think of the following players. And, all right, there we go. All right, I just put a poll in the chat. I'll be curious to see a couple of the answers there. Tonight's player of the game, is it Logan Cooley, Karel Vejmelka? Is it Nick Schmaltz, or is it Kevin Stenlund for the good work he did in tonight's game? It also continues to be the case that the Utah Hockey Club is doing a good job of blocking supply to the net. They are finding ways to stop the puck from getting at the net. And as they're doing that, they're giving themselves a real chance. You know, Veggie, I was worried about his workload and the amount of bruises on his body from all the great saves that he'd be making, and all these, 85-mile-an-hour pucks hitting him over and over and over again. And I'm certain that he is banged up and bruised. But Veggie, huh? What a beast. What a good competitor tonight. He, again, that .947 save percentage, just really steady. And the one goal that got through, too, you wouldn't say, like, well, that was soft. Why did he let that one get by him? That seems like a goal he shouldn't have given up. That's something that we like seeing that happen. But I think Veggie standing tall, saving all the shots that he needs to be saving, it was just a really good thing to see for this team. And again, I am worried about the load management, the workload on him. There is a point where there will become diminishing returns. However, if he only faces 19 shots, like any goalie worth their salt should give you a chance to win against 19 shots. So that is an overall team effort of stopping the supply of pucks to the net. There's so many blocked shots. That's a sign of a good back check. That is a sign of taking care of business in the neutral zone and not allowing too many rushes through the zone. I think that the Utah Hockey Club's job that they did in limiting shots tonight from Vancouver was tremendous. I think the work that they were putting in all of the zones, on the forecheck, in the neutral zone, on the back check, I think that they did so much to hinder what was going on there. Beyond that, we're talking about the 19 shots on goal, and I'm telling you, about half of those shots for Vancouver came on the 4 power plays that they got. Hey, let's talk about that big moment, huh? All right, you guys think it's Veggie in the chat. That's cool. Veggie was great. We're getting good goalkeeping from Vejmelka, so it'll be a fascinating thing to see how they continue to use him. And it's clear to me that they're just going to ride this thing out without playing Matias Maccelli, which is a question that I had wondered and as we observed it. But tonight, with O'Brien out, they decided to bring Bukestad back and not Maccelli. So, and that makes sense because they need some more rough and tumble in the lineup. And as they've had more physicality in the lineup, they've been able to do a whole lot more to limit the amount of shots that are going against them. So that doesn't come down to one player, but it is interesting to note just for a moment. Okay, so yeah, I think that the grit and toughness that this team showed in controlling the pace of play and trying to keep the amount of shots down on Vejmelka, they did such a good, committed job of trying to be more physical. They are doing more on the forecheck later in the season to be a menace and to stop rush opportunities. And that third line with Lawson Krause and Doan and McBain, like when that group is on the ice, they do a terrific job for a third line to sort of mitigate what we're trying to accomplish on the ice. So it's a pretty fascinating thing for them to look at. And then the other one is like sometimes bad luck happens. So like a shot comes in from the point, that shot from the point goes off a skate and through the goalie's legs and into the back of the net. Like that is how Quinn Hughes scored tonight. The other part of what we take a look at, right, is we want to be clear about you've got to control your stick. You are responsible for controlling your stick. So even though Clayton Keller got thrown down to the ice, even though all of those things happened and it was unfair, that moment where the high stick came up and caught Brock Besser and then made him bleed, double minor, and I'll tell you, that's another set of bad luck for this Utah Hockey Club. And what they did in killing off that 4 minutes of penalties was terrific. It was so frustrating to Vancouver on the ice. Their fans were just losing their minds, right? They just couldn't, they were heartsick that there wasn't more action and pucks to the net. You know, I think that it was a terrific performance on that penalty kill in a very, very big spot. And obviously the first goal that goes through, again, a little bit of puck luck. It goes off of Sergachev, goes through the legs of Veggie. It's almost a deflected goal. Just, like Sergachev was helping out Quinn Hughes on that one. But, so that's kind of where we are. Now, the question is, is this team, now having avoided going 6 points down with 15 games remaining, but now being 2 points down with 15 games remaining, that the calculus of that is huge. Money Puck has the playoff odds for Utah before the game. Coming into the game tonight, they had it at 19.7%. All right? And that has been updated. And the updated percentage, let me look. Updated percentage of that is now 28%. Okay? So it went up by 9%. Meanwhile, Vancouver's making the playoffs odds. We're at 40% entering the game. It's now down to 30%. So we are talking about a virtual tie. A virtual tie according to Money Puck, according to their advanced stats, according to what the schedules look like the rest of the way. This is going to be a tight one. The one that you have to watch out for now is Calgary, who has 2 games in hand. They've got 17 games remaining, but they are about to take on a very nasty road stretch. At Toronto, at New York Rangers, and I know they're not as good this year, but still, at New Jersey Devils, and then at New York Islanders. So they've got a 4-game stretch on the road. That is 4 games in 7 days. They are going to have a gauntlet there. And with 2 games in hand, we're looking for Calgary to come away from that 4-game win streak with like 3 points or less. If they get 3 points or less, I think Utah is just like straight back in this, especially if they can find a way to go get a point, even if it's a loser point against Edmonton, they'll be in good shape. Then the homestand against Buffalo, who they should be able to beat Buffalo, Tampa at home, and then Detroit at home. This next coming homestand is going to be huge. Then again, we look at the at Tampa, at Florida, at Chicago. That is a back-to-back at Tampa, at Florida. That is a back-to-back. That second night in Florida is going to be a rough one. The at Chicago moment is the third game in 4 days. That is going to be hard. They just flew to Tampa, then they play at Florida the next night. They have a day off to travel, and then they play Chicago the next day. So even though they should beat Chicago, that is a game that is going to prove to be a little bit tricky. So they've got to get it while they can right now. And this is the stretch for them. The Edmonton game is a game where if they can go in there and find their way in this game on Tuesday, when they play on Tuesday against Edmonton, the stakes are huge because they have a few home games following that would give them a chance to make some hay at Buffalo or home to Buffalo. Like that's a game again, an okay team, but a team that is, more or less out of the playoff mix. Like this is a team that does not need to win, that is harmed by winning at this point. Buffalo's a game that you got to go out and find a win against. It's just a game that you got to get a win against. Meanwhile, as we look at the game against Edmonton that's coming up, if you take a look at it, Edmonton's basically in. They're going to make the playoffs. They are waiting for the postseason. This is a home game for them. Obviously, Draisaitl, like the story of their season now is like, can Draisaitl get to like 60 goals? They're going to be looking to see maybe 65, right? See if he can make a push. So it's like in a weird way, this team is really playing for stats at this point. This is not really a team that needs this game. And so if Utah can come out and have the energy and the focus and the drive that they showed tonight against Vancouver, this has to be a game that they play with some intention. And we got it. Like third game in... Oh, no, it'd be the fourth game in 8 days. They've been on an every other day schedule. This will be the last game of their 3-game road swing. Edmonton, of course, very good. Stanley Cup finalists last year. You got Connor McDavid. I know the whole story, right? Draisaitl and the goal scoring. You've got Evan Bouchard, and they're great. We know they're great. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, solid player, right? But this is a game that is not that important for Edmonton, and it's like huge for Utah. Huge. If they find a way to beat Edmonton, as I'm looking at it on Money Puck right now, it increases their opportunity to play in the playoffs by another like 3%. So and that's huge. That's huge because they're currently sitting at about 29%. That number may shrink a little bit depending on what happens with Calgary tomorrow. But this is a game that maybe they wouldn't be expected to win. And if this is a game that they can go out and find a way of getting a win, that will change many, many things for Utah Hockey Club as they try to make this, unlikely push to the playoffs. But tonight's game, the big win against Vancouver, that is going to be the massive, massive difference for this team. So big woos for the team. Excellent job by Utah in their first kind of must-win, like huge, we absolutely got to have it game in the history of the franchise. And they go out and they do it. They get their first gotta have it, definitely have to win game. There's gonna be a few more of these games, but again, if Utah can find a way to do the job against Edmonton, they'll have a really good chance. The last time, too, that I'll mention this, but we have run into the issue of the math question. And the math question is this. In the last 5 years, the lowest amount of points ever scored to get into the playoffs, and unless they set a new record low, we're just going to assume that, that they got to hit at least this minimum threshold. That minimum threshold is 91 points. And I think one of those 4 teams in the mix, between St. Louis, who won tonight, Utah, Vancouver, and Calgary, one of these teams is going to get on a roll here. They all have about 15 games left, except for Calgary. Calgary has more. St. Louis, I think, has 14 games left. The biggest thing is one of these teams is going to win like 10 of their last 15 games. And whichever team does it, it'll probably be the team that finds their way into the playoffs and earns their way into the playoffs. The other part of this that becomes really huge when you start to look at the playoff race, and given how close it is, it's going to come down to tiebreakers. Like it feels like it's going to come down to tiebreakers. The first tiebreaker for the NHL is regulation wins. And as it relates to regulation wins, Utah has 22 of them now. St. Louis has 23 of them. Vancouver and Calgary have 24 of them. So if we were tied in points with any of the other teams that were racing for that last playoff spot, Utah does not get in because they have the lowest amount of regulation wins. So they need to find a way to get more regulation wins like they did tonight, because that's the thing that's going to get them there. They cannot continue to stack overtime wins. They need to get some regulation wins because the race is so close that if it comes down to tiebreakers, that's the first tiebreaker. Now, let's say they do, presumably, if they do well enough to get to a place where they're tied at the end of the season and have a chance to make in the playoffs, that probably means that they're going to, make up some ground against Calgary. They obviously got to make up ground by the tune of one more game on Vancouver. If they're able to kind of make up that ground down the stretch, it's likely the case that they would have maybe made up those 2 regulation wins that they're behind both Calgary and Vancouver on. And so then the second tiebreaker, if they are tied in regulation wins, so if they have the same amount of points and the same amount of regulation wins, then the question comes to, well, how many of the wins that you had were in overtime? And overtime wins plus regulation wins is the second tiebreaker. So how many regulation wins plus overtime wins? And so in that scenario, Utah's actually in front right now. They've got more overtime wins than Vancouver, Calgary, and St. Louis. So if they can chase them down, they're likely in a position to find their way into the playoffs. They just have to chase them down. And tonight's result was the first step that had to happen. It was crucial. It was a must occurrence. It was the first must-win game in the history of the franchise, and they won the game. So, I'm pleased for him. And I'm really happy for Logan Cooley. He finally got off the schneid, found a way to get a goal into the back of the net. That was super duper exciting. And beyond that, the effort, the creativity, that little sauce pass that he had to Gunther. Gunther put it on net. That was a pretty nice moment. I think this is a player who they were saying, well, what happened to his points? Where did his points go? But the thing with Cooley, in that third period is just like, and we've talked about it. It's like much of the offense for Utah Hockey Club this season has come by virtue of the work they've done on 5-on-5. When it's even, or excuse me, other way around. Most of their offensive production this season has been on the power play with the man advantage. When it's been 5-on-5, it has not been particularly strong for this team. Sparky, I'm with you, baby. I'm with you. How about Logan Cooley? Huh? How about Logan Cooley? Let's have Logan Cooley be in Utah forever, huh? I'm absolutely... Hey, Logan, this is the place. This is the place. So we're pretty psyched about the effort tonight. Again, it's his second season in the NHL, and he has stretches of time where he looks by far the most dangerous, most menacing figure on the ice for Utah Hockey Club. And when he looks that way, obviously it looks way better for this team, but there's also times where I think his effectiveness, his style of play sets Utah up to have some momentum with their other lines. If that makes sense. Like, this isn't really shots fired at Clayton Keller, but the way Clayton Keller plays as a sniper, or even Dylan Guenther, like, these guys, settle. Sometimes they're a little reluctant to go to the net. They'd rather one-time something on the dot, on the right wing or the left wing. If it's Keller, he likes that right wing. If it's if it's Guenther, he likes it on the left wing. They like to kind of settle from the outside and just snipe in shots. But what Logan Cooley does is they just keep it. And what they like to do is just try to maintain like a long offensive possession and begin a cycle and trying to do those sort of things. But sometimes, man, you got to go to the net. Sometimes you got to just dump it in there and go, knock around a guy on the forecheck. And I love seeing that out of our sophomore player. I saw at one point, with about 5 minutes left, not only was he leading the way, he had a goal, but he was also leading the team in hits. Let me take a look. Yeah, Logan Cooley tonight for the Utah Hockey Club had 4 hits, tied with Jack McBain. Jack McBain had 4. Logan Cooley had 4. That is just giving it up and doing everything that you could. Lawson Krause, 3 hits tonight. A few other players had 1 hit. But you got to love seeing the kid do the job with the forecheck tonight. I think it's changing a lot of the momentum of where you are. And the other part I love about Logan Cooley is I love how frustrated other teams seem to be playing him. It's like he gets under their skin, and I don't know if they don't like his scraggly long hair. I don't know if they like that he looks like he's he could be on the front of a Life cereal box. Like, he's young. He's 20. Like, I don't know, for whatever reason, but yeah, that's the way it looks. Hey, so the Canucks looked empty tonight, says my man Sparky. They did. They looked pretty empty, didn't they? It's a weird team. Like, I'm glad I'm not a Canucks fan, because I feel like it would be really confusing to be a Canucks fan this season. Between all the drama that they've had off the ice between Elias Pettersson and JT Miller, and the problems that have arisen out of that, and then having to trade away one of your star players to make your other star player happy. Meanwhile, neither of those players are really the star player, because the star player is actually Quinn Hughes. But these two guys who are like second-tier players, just complaining and whining about each other. Meanwhile, the best player just does his work and gets hurt and then gets healthy and comes back and plays 30 minutes of ice time. Like, it's hard not to really admire Quinn Hughes and what he does. He's an impressive player. And I think that Vancouver tonight, the way that they turned up to this really big game, they did not play with the sort of urgency that they have on that. Why did they even trade JT Miller? Yeah, well, they did it because well, I mean, I think this is probably a bit reductive of the whole scenario, but essentially it came down to there was a massive personality clash between Elias Pettersson and JT Miller. That they couldn't coexist. That, yeah, there was finger pointing, and the Canucks made their choice between their two really good players, and they decided to trade JT Miller to the Rangers. And that's how that went. That's the story, basically. They had to choose between JT Miller. They had to choose between JT Miller and Elias Pettersson. So, and by the way, that's the choice I would have made too. But there was actually a point of their season where they thought about trading both of those guys because they were just like good riddance. I don't want to. According to reports, that the folks in Vancouver were so frustrated with both of the players that they said they thought about getting rid of both of them. But anyway, that's the story. That's the story there. So they've had a strange year. The numbers they showed during the broadcast, I don't know if you saw this, Sparky, but during the broadcast they showed what the on-off numbers are when Quinn Hughes is on the ice versus off the ice, and then also when he's available to play in a game versus not available to play in a game. It is absolutely crazy. Yeah. Imagine for a second as it relates to the Canucks, just to go back to this, is like, imagine imagine, I guess the best player is, Keller. And decide, that for some reason out of nowhere, let's say, reports come up that there's just like genuinely huge problems between Dylan Guenther and Logan Cooley. Or actually, maybe a better example would be like, I mean, like Dylan Guenther and like Sergachev. And you can't get these two to agree, so you take the older player and you send him on the road and you bet on the future. Yeah, so there you go. I think everyone wishes they had Quinn Hughes on their team. What a terrific player. Norris Trophy winner for the best defenseman in hockey last year. He's terrific. The good news is if we're talking about a player that can be among the, Quinn Hughes is undoubtedly one of the 10 best players in hockey. Minimal. You might be able to argue he's top 5. From a defenseman standpoint, he's a new school style of defenseman, but I don't know that there's 3 defensemen you'd rather have. Makar or him. Yeah. That's right. And that's what they did. So there you go. Well, it's a fascinating one to see what happened in Vancouver. I just think the way that everything went for Vancouver this year has been strange. The injury to Quinn Hughes, that's been one of the big problems for them this year. Obviously, we saw what their on-offs are and what a difference he makes on the ice. He is a tremendous talent. But again, as much as he did this year, and he played in all 3 games against Utah Hockey Club, Utah finds a way to get the season sweep against the Vancouver Canucks and wins their first ever must-win game in franchise history. And honestly, it came down to, entering that third period. They had 20 minutes, tons of pressure. This is what they've been building toward. They made no adjustments at the trade deadline because Bill Armstrong said that he felt they deserved a chance to make a run at it as this group. Now, that could be some posturing by the GM because there just wasn't that much interest in any trades or not much interest in what the return on any of the trades may have looked like. But the bottom line is this group has gotten a chance to play together and get a chance to go into the playoffs, and then they have to find a way against Winnipeg and deal with Connor Hellebuck, but that's just it. Okay, you're worried about the St. Louis Blues. Sparky is worried about the St. Louis Blues. He's worried about them sneaking into the playoffs. They're playing a lot better hockey. You gotta like what Robert Thomas brings to the table. Kyrou. They've got a lot of guys that, I like a few of their players. There's no question about it. So they've played an extra game. They're tied with Vancouver now. They're clearly going to be in the mix of everything. You got to like, as it relates to the Blues. I think this is a strong take, Sparky. The one thing about the Blues that you got to like is that their goal differential is even to this point of the season. Utah's the next best in that circumstance. So just means, that they're scoring goals and giving up goals at the same rate. Utah gives up more goals than they score so far this season. Just a -8. That can be remedied, but the fact of the matter is that there's been more consistent, matched offensive output with defensive regression. I think that they've done a really good job. And just to take a look at what St. Louis is looking at then the rest of the year, they've got 14 games left. Let me see if I can pull this up. Who did they play tonight? They had Anaheim tonight. Is that right? Yeah. And their schedule is favorable. Just to look at it, like, no question about it, their schedule is pretty favorable down the stretch. Maybe that's it. Yeah. Well, I'm glad. I'm glad you're nice and clean, showering in the car wash. That's great. I love it. And where can you get eggs from Sergachev? From his mansion of a house, I'm sure. His chickens have a better dwelling than I do, potentially. Okay, here we go. Just to look at St. Louis the rest of their season, just to break it down real quick. At Nashville is their next game. Obviously, Nashville having a down year, certainly not playing as well as St. Louis at this point. Rest advantage goes to Nashville pretty significantly. Then they are at home against Vancouver. Woo! Vancouver could be in trouble. That's going to be a huge game. That'll be a good one to watch if you're a casual, just wanting some good coach. And then obviously they got Chicago at home, Nashville at home, Montreal at home. Then they go at Nashville, and then finally. So you're right. I mean, take a look. That's kind of outside of Vancouver, none of those other teams are really in it. I know Montreal's chasing as well, but like at Nashville, home to Vancouver, home Chicago, home Nashville, home Montreal, at Nashville, at Colorado. So finally they have a big one. Then they play Detroit at home. Yeah. Detroit, they're fading a little bit. Pittsburgh at home. Then they have another Colorado game at home. At Winnipeg, so it finally toughens up. At Edmonton, that could toughen up. Seeding, maybe Edmonton will be playing down the stretch because maybe they can figure out their seeding there. At Seattle, and then they are home to Utah to finish the season. That's a great call, Sparky. It's a great call. All the talk of Vancouver and Calgary, and it's, because they've got games in hand, but both Vancouver and Calgary got to go to the east. They got to deal with the New York, New Jersey, the Rangers, Islander, Devils road trip. That's not good. That'll be. I think you're right. I think maybe St. Louis is there. And then, yes, throw in the coach and the experience that is on the line for the St. Louis Blues. Beyond that, I kind of... And the other one, that last game of the season, if it's close, that road game, and it's in St. Louis, yeah. I mean, that'll be a fascinating thing to take a look at. Jim Montgomery. He's done a nice job there. Right? I mean, I think that he's done a really good job since they made the switch. And then beyond that, what you got to like about Jim Montgomery as it relates to what he's brought to that team is that they continue to seem to get better as the season goes along, right? And so, yeah, I agree. It's a great take. It's something I hadn't fully got there. I'm jealous of it. It's a great take. Great take. But maybe not as great as the shower that Car Wash had. But yeah, it's a great take. St. Louis has probably the weakest schedule rest of the way. As I look at it, they only have 4. Well, no, they have 4 games against teams that are definitely playoff teams this year. Only 4. Utah down the stretch is going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 7. Yeah. So there you go. It's nice and hot. Yeah. That guy's got a water heater that's dominating. Hey, so yeah, I think that's one of the big things that we want to take a look at is we want to look at that. Plus, beyond that, yeah, they may have the coaching thing. Andre Tourigny, I'm not sure. Let's talk about that tonight. I'm not convinced that Andre Tourigny made necessarily. Yeah, it's a down year for Boston. Just losing Jim Montgomery. There's no question about it. It was to celebrate win tonight. It's good. I would say this as it relates to Andre Tourigny. He made the change in the lines and decided to put Logan Cooley away from Keller, away from Schmaltz, and we got a lot more out of Logan Cooley. We didn't necessarily see more out of Keller and Schmaltz. I don't know that Kerfoot is the guy for them. I also would just say, not this season, because this season is this season, and they don't need to disrupt and try something wild, while we're in the middle of the giant playoff hunt here. But the biggest thing is that are we sure, as much as Schmaltz and Keller like playing together and as much that they've set each other up and scored goals together, why is it that they've gone through every center and every center gets worse when they play with them? And maybe that's a bit dramatic, but is it? Logan Cooley looked better without them. He looked better earlier in the year when he was with Dylan Guenther more primarily. He goes back with Dylan Guenther again tonight. He looks better. Barrett Hayton played much of the season with them earlier this year. Hayton has gotten to look a lot stronger as he's been on different lines later in this year. It's worth considering. That's all. And maybe this is a late night madman musings, but I would just say I think it just seems to me like there hasn't been a good fit for center. They tried a little bit of Bukestad with them, that didn't work. Tonight, Kerfoot, that didn't really work, And so, yeah, with Tourné trying to bounce lines or just try to find a way to get something a little different working. But as it currently stands, they do not have a center that works with Keller and Schmaltz. And so then the question should probably be asked, like, long term, do we want to continue to have Schmaltz and Keller together, even though they enjoy playing together and they've had some synergy and success together? Could you find a better scenario? And by the way, Nick Schmaltz is on his contract year next year. He'll be an unrestricted free agent at the end of the season next year. So again, this is one of those interesting things where would they take a look at if the asset was correct, maybe they move on. You got to let the kids cook, baby. Maybe. But for whatever reason, they definitely got to play together the rest of this season. I would not screw around with Schmaltz. I would not screw around with Keller this season. You think we should keep them together, Car Wash. I respect it. You're nice and clean. You're feeling great. I love the detail. I just think it's funny. That's all. I think it's fun. A victory shower. I like it. Just like the players. But I would just say that for whatever reason, being a center with those two guys, I think is really tough because it puts a ton on your plate. While Schmaltz is pretty good at backtracking, Keller is not. He's not Warrior-like in his backtracking and back-checking. Schmaltz isn't a good back-checker, but at least he skates back pretty hard. But if you're the center, you've got to do all the forechecking. You got to do all the back-checking. Like that, it's so demanding if you're on there with those two guys. And I think there's just a reason that hasn't worked yet. And it hasn't really, just nobody has seemed to be able to be comfortable being a center for those two. I think it's a hard fit. For whatever reason. It just, and not that hockey should be easy, but for whatever reason, just playing with those two has shown that there's a little bit of trouble trying to figure those things out. Okay. Worth considering. Okay, you blew my mind there. St. Louis is the team to be afraid of. Yeah, maybe so. I still think that 91 is still the right answer. I saw that Car Wash. That's funny. I would just say though that like I still think that 91 is still the answer in terms of that's how many points you got to get to. If Utah wants to get in, if they go 10-5 over this last stretch, I think they're probably in, man. I think they probably find their way to fight their way in. It would be their best stretch of the season, definitely. But yeah, that would be really big. They can't go every other game like they have over the last four. They lost to Toronto, they beat Anaheim, they lose to Seattle, they beat Vancouver. They've got to stack wins. And so that it all starts on Tuesday when they play the Edmonton Oilers. But how fun is this? It is all come down to these final 15 games. We have 4 teams in the mix, 3 teams that we can definitely root against, and the development of little rivalries. And by the way, I'm cool with it being the Blues. Let's go. I have no problem having our Central Division rival be the St. Louis Blues. No problem with that. I know they're an old, legendary group, but most of the people in their city were, fans of the original 6 Chicago Blackhawks anyway, So people in their city, they're not even favorite team of the people that live in St. Louis, historically. Yeah. Anyway, okay. So there we are. 10-5, I think, is the goal. If they win 10 of the next 15 games, that gets them to 91 points, and it gives them a chance to make the playoffs. I suppose if they lose, they got to find a way to grind out loser points. But the bigger thing is that they'll have to find a way to continue stack up the wins. And again, I just want to I'm preparing you. I'm just putting it's like I'm locked into this, but I'm a little afraid. I'm a little afraid of what we're going to have to deal with when it comes to Vejmelka having made 10 straight starts. I mean, unless he's Martin Brodeur, this is there comes a point of diminishing returns from the goalie. So it'll be really, really, really fascinating. Really fascinating. Tuesday, 7 o'clock, ESPN against the Oilers. Really exciting. Okay, Sparky, I'll answer your question. And then I'll get out of here. I love the country of Canada. I think it is a tremendous. Just enjoy the ride. Okay, all right. Stop worrying. Stop worrying. Have more fun with life. Okay. I love the country of Canada. I think "Oh Canada" is a beautiful song. I know all the words to it. I'd love to sing it at a hockey game someday. It's one of my goals. In minor league, I don't care. If it's for a Utah Hockey Club game when a Canadian team is in town, I want to sing "Oh Canada." No, I don't. I want to sing it in Canada. I want to sing "Oh Canada" in Canada at a hockey game. I'm an American. I get it, but I'd really love to do it. I think it's great. I have family from Canada. I married into a family that is Norwegian, but then immigrated from Norway to Canada. So anyway, I have affection for the country of Norway and Canada. I like those two countries. Car wash, that's fine. You can boo Canada, but anyway, okay. So here's the deal. My favorite. So before Utah Hockey Club was around, I'm a Philadelphia Flyers guy. Okay. So that means that in no way, shape, or form do I like the Ottawa Senators. Okay. Not a big fan of the Ottawa Senators. So I'm out on Ottawa. If I go with my in-laws, you're fine. You don't have to retract your message. It's fine. You can boo Canada if you want. If I go with the family, the answer is the Calgary Flames. The problem is that the Calgary Flames are in the division. So are Vancouver. So I guess I'd say this. In my travels, what I think is the coolest Canadian city, the place I've had the most fun in, the place I've enjoyed the most. Je t'aime, Montreal. I would probably say the Montreal Canadiens. The history's great. When you turn on the broadcast and it's in French, that's pretty exciting. But Quebec is a great province, and Montreal, like kind of an underrated vacation city. So there you go. I know French Canada. I know the whole thing. I know, but I guess if I'm a fly. I don't know. I don't really like any of the Canadian teams all that much, if I'm being honest, like totally honest. But I do like that country, and I would say that I am probably the biggest fan of Montreal. And I can't say Toronto because I take too much joy at watching them blow it in the playoffs every year. What a terrific team. All the talent on that team is there. Yeah. Well, that's part of it. I like the history, you know. I like that they're original 6 team and all that. But anyway, Montreal. Okay, Car Wash. Why is your name Keith Schertz, and how did you get that name? It's what my parents. I got it from my parents. It's my name. It's a weird last name, but it's mine. So it's not a moniker. It's not a avatar. I'm just being honest about my name. So that's where we're at. So, okay. Hey, look, it's been fun hanging out, fun chatting to you. I've enjoyed hanging out again tonight. We will be back on Tuesday to talk about the Utah Hockey Club when they take on Thought You Liked Shorts. Only in the summertime. Oh, I do like shirts. I usually am wearing one. I would say we are going to join you again on Tuesday night against after the game against the Edmonton Oilers. Huge game, as always. We will have to see. Very difficult test. But again, it feels like of the big games, this is one that they have a chance at, weirdly. I don't know why I feel like that way, but I kind of feel that way. So we're gonna see how it shakes out. But all things being equal, Utah Hockey Club comes up big, huge, woo, tonight against the Vancouver Canucks. And that will do it for tonight's After the Buzzer. We will see you next time. Thanks for hanging out.